attitude. Well,
a battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
Hello, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, Adam Keller. We are broadcasting live online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio studio in Huntsville, Alabama. Today, UAW members in Alabama end their strike with a win, while UAW members at the Big Three reject Ford's pleading to end the strike. We also talk about what's happening in the Alabama Democratic Party, all that and more on today's program. If you want to be part of the show today, we've got a phone number and the line is open. 844-899-TVLR is the number, 844-899-8857. You can also leave a voicemail throughout the week, and we will be responding to a voicemail left last week in overtime. That is the second half of our program that is online only. So if you're listening to us on the radio, then find us online. YouTube, Facebook. We're going to continue the stream for another hour and a half after we get off of the radio, and you can find us wherever you find your podcasts. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, then you can follow us anywhere you find anything online, especially at our website, TVLR.fm. You can bookmark that page, stay up to date on the latest articles and newsletters that we release. Last Week in Southern Labor and Boss Watch come out as a newsletter every single week on the homepage of our website and your email inbox. You can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, all at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to become a sustaining donor to the program, make a one-time donation, or buy our merch. You can do that on our website, tvlr.fm, tvlr.fm/donate to make a one-time or recurring contribution, tvlr.fm/store to buy our merch, and patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to become a patron. If you're a member of a union, then think about getting your local to sponsor the show. We couldn't do it without our union partners.
That's right, and let me add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Unclaimed Mysteries Internet Radio, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, or through your favorite podcast app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out. As most of you know, we are not media professionals, just a few diehard unionists who believe that Alabama and the South's labor movement and working class deserve a bigger platform. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we could not do it without you. We want to thank everyone for tuning in, whether you're a loyal fan or a first-time listener. We appreciate you spending some time with us this morning.
Absolutely. And just to kick off the show, the same thing is dominating the news as last week, and we don't have anything else to add other than, of course, our thoughts continue to stay with the people in Gaza who are being brutally assaulted by the Israeli government right now. And the latest victim of the Israeli government is a Christian church, the third oldest in the world. The Israeli government confirmed that they hit this church. And among the victims, among the dead, is some of the family of former Republican Representative Justin Amash. He is of Palestinian descent, and he still has some family in Gaza who are now among the dead. So just terrible, terrible things happening, and it is absolutely not anti-Semitic to want that to end, funny enough. That's the only thing that we have to say about that, though. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into Last Week in Southern Labor. That is a segment that we do every week where we talk about what happened in the South. Southern workers are always on the move. We are always winning union elections, winning grievances, having internal union affairs, and so we like to talk about it. So here's what workers in the U.S. South and her colonies were up to in the week ending on the 20th of October. In new election filings, we had 41 workers at Republic Services in Calhoun, Georgia. They filed for a union election with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Local 728. 19 workers at the Oklahoma Policy Institute in Tulsa, Oklahoma, filed for a union election with the United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 1000. The employer filed for a union election after a majority of the 7 employees at Repro Rising in Alexandria, Virginia, showed majority support for unionization with their independent union, Repro Rising Union. The employer filed for a union election after a majority of the 40 employees at Drumick Incorporated in Lorton, Virginia, showed majority support for unionization with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. Anti-union workers at Valero Services in West Memphis, Arkansas, where the United Steelworkers International Union represents 7 workers, filed a petition to decertify the union. 26 workers at American Electric Power Service Corporation in Hurricane, West Virginia, filed for a union election with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 978. The employer filed for a union election after a majority of the 20 workers at Starbucks in Midwest City, Oklahoma, showed majority support for unionization with Starbucks Workers United. The employer also filed for a union election after a majority of the 21 workers at a Starbucks in Houston, Texas, showed support for unionization with Starbucks Workers United. Anti-union workers at Pepinia in San Sebastian, Puerto Rico, where the Federación Central de Trabajadores represents 8 workers there, filed a petition to decertify the union. 14 workers at Johnson Controls Fire Protection in Chattanooga, Tennessee, filed for a union election with the United Association UA Local 669. We had a few election results. Workers at Bourbon Dog in Burlington, North Carolina, voted in favor of unionization with the Tech Repair Union Local 1. Workers at Starbucks in Jonesboro, Georgia, voted in favor of unionization with Starbucks Workers United. And workers at Ocean Point Terminals in Christiansted, Virgin Islands, voted against unionization with the United Steelworkers International Union, USW, by 1 vote. Hate to see that. Absolutely hate to see that. Updates and strikes and bargaining. Like I mentioned, 188 UAW members at ZF Manufacturing, which is a Mercedes parts manufacturer in Alabama, end their strike on Monday after having voted in favor of a new tentative agreement 98% that eliminates tiers, increases wages, and adds vacation time. So very happy for those folks. Memphis Soy Protein Production Workers with the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union, BCTGM, Local 390G, have been on strike since June. Last week, they took their strike to New York, to the headquarters of the company, the International Flavors and Fragrances, in coordination with the New York City Labor Council, that brought out several unions in support, including Richard Bensinger. I saw him in some of the pictures. He has been a big supporter of the Starbucks Workers Union. 4,000 UAW members at Mack Trucks continue their strike. UAW President Shawn Fain said that after members voted down the contract, the company attempted to rearrange the deck chairs to get a revote. This is something that has happened in the past when both union leadership and the company feel that membership is ahead of their skis, including in the UAW, I'm sad to say. But Shawn Fain made clear that those days were over in the UAW, and the union will require real movement before taking a deal back to the membership. Shangri-La dispensary workers with UFCW Local 655 in Columbia, Missouri are still on strike. They began in May. Three Brothers Coffee workers with UFCW Local 1995 in Nashville, Tennessee have been on strike since June. In policy, politics, and legislation, Starbucks is suing Starbucks Workers United for copyright infringement, stemming in particular from their support of Palestine. In internal union affairs, Yvonne Brooks was elected president of the Georgia AFL-CIO, the first woman to hold that position and the second black woman state federation president. So congratulations to Sister Brooks. Look forward to working with her in the future. with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and go to our first break. We will be right back and give you some details on what happened down in Tuscaloosa with the ZF manufacturing workers and talk about some politicians' responses. Some of those were good. Nothing super spicy, but definitely not as good as they could have been. So we're going to be talking about that. Be right back, folks. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and family members are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough even to keep their jobs. We can fix this. It's time for us to find a way to close the health care coverage gap so that people can remain at work. Let's make this a priority. Let's close this gap and cover Alabama. To learn more and how you can help, visit coveralabama.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Attention union members, membership organizations, podcasters, or anyone with a payment processing need. The future is here, and your organization needs to be prepared by working with Unionly. With Unionly, your union or organization can take payments on a mobile device, eliminating processing fees, giving you a better price than other payment processing methods, while at the same time supporting a union-friendly business with a specialized skill set to meet your needs. Your members will thank you when they pay their dues at their convenience without waiting in line to deposit cash or check. Start preparing for the future today by calling 206-595-8631 or visiting unionly.io.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law, the name with proven results.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor, and you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. The phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857 if you would like to join the show. We recorded a couple of ads last week, but we haven't been able to finish production with them and get them into the rotation, so I will tell you them now. We got 2 new sponsors of the program, really appreciative of them. Benefit Architects is one. Benefit Architects has proudly supported union members and union-made products for over 35 years. If you're a federal employee and an AFGE member, you are eligible for hundreds of dollars in money-saving benefits, including group life, dental, and AFLAC insurance. If you're a union member but don't work for the federal government, you may still qualify for several money-saving policies. So call Tate Heir at 256-215-6769 for details and to enroll. Again, that is Tate Heir at 256-215-6769 for details and to enroll in the many policies that Benefit Architects has to offer. We got a comment from Jared of IFPTE Local 27, representing NASA scientists and engineers here in Huntsville. And before I get to his comment from the chat, I just want to congratulate the new president of the local, representing about 1,000 scientists and engineers at the Marshall Space Flight Center. So W's in the chat for Jared. Also Konstantin Garfield's Foskey in the YouTube chat. Congratulations to him. Look forward to working closely with him as president of the union over there. I know he's going to do great things. But he asked in the chat, didn't the Medieval Times Company... Oh, also, I just want to mention one more thing. They had the elections. He was elected president. The entire executive board at that union is now under 35. So that is very, very cool. Very cool. Okay.
Absolutely.
So his comment is, didn't the Medieval Times Company also sue the Medieval Times Union over copyright infringement, and the NLRB tossed it out? It was tossed out, not by the NLRB, because the copyright suit was not filed with the NLRB. It was filed with, district court or something like that. But the judge did throw it out, with U.S. District Court's Judge William J. Martini disagreeing, calling the theory that, so the thing that both Starbucks and Medieval Times a year ago was arguing is that, people are going to confuse us. People are going to think that either we're the same entity, or the union is part of us, or that the company is endorsing the union or whatever. The district judge disagreed, calling that theory entirely conclusory, saying consumers are not likely to believe the two parties are endorsed by Medieval Times. Also noting that Medieval Times in their lawsuit didn't cite a single instance in which a consumer was confused. So
nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that was dismissed by Medieval Times. I expect it to be for Starbucks as well.
Let's hope so.
Yep. DL Cindero says, Jacob, is that TVLR cap you're wearing back in stock? It is not, but it will be in the next round of merch that we order, I anticipate.
Yeah, I anticipate that will be our next merch order. We do have some really cool t-shirts in stock right now, so definitely check it out at tvlr.fm/store.
All right, so let's talk about this. The headline is that ZF manufacturing workers in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who make Mercedes parts. They are a Mercedes parts supplier. They have been on strike now for a month, and they got a tentative agreement last week, and a few days after they got the tentative agreement, they voted 98% in favor of the tentative agreement. They go back to work on Monday, and so I would say 98% in favor. That the workers are obviously happy with it. I call that a win. Very happy for them. The strike issues included eliminating tiers where workers who started after a certain date have a less lucrative benefits package. They wanted general raises. Currently, the starting rate at the plant is only $15.50 an hour, even for first-tier workers. and they wanted better health care costs. So they were able to win tier elimination by the end of the contract, October 2027. So it's a 4-year contract. $23 an hour for all production and logistics by the end of the CBA. And that is going to equal a $4.20 an hour raise for tier 2 workers. So that's good for them. Really happy for that. And they got an additional holiday. So there's obviously a few other things, but those are kind of the highlights. Happy for them, and glad they're going to be able to go back to work on Monday. I mentioned that I spoke to some politicians about that, and so what I did about a week and a half ago is I emailed every state representative and state senator in and around Tuscaloosa. So I think I sent off maybe a dozen emails, maybe like 7 or 8. Yeah, it was like 7 or 8 state representatives and 3 state senators. Most of them did not respond. That's kind of the way that these things go. But, so I said in the email, I went over the strike issues. They want to eliminate tiers. They want to have a higher starting rate, and they want to, working on some healthcare costs. I mentioned that the issue was separate from the larger strike and contract negotiations between the UAW and the big 3 automakers. So I had 3 questions. I had 3 questions for the politicians. I said, regarding this issue, could you please answer the following? 1, do you support the workers in their strike for a better contract? 2, have you been to or will you go to the picket line? And 3, is there any legislation or policy you have pursued or will pursue in the legislature to support or oppose striking workers generally? Why or why not? And I also said to feel free to include any other thoughts you might have on this issue specifically or workers' issues generally. So the Democratic representative, so this is the guy that represents the plant, okay? He's a Democrat, represents the plant, A.J. McCampbell, Artis J. McCampbell. Are you familiar with him, Adam?
I'm not,
at all?
no.
Artis J. McCampbell, A.J. McCampbell, Democratic representative, represents the district that the strike is on. Could not get him at all. Sent him an email, and the email on the state legislative site is wrong. It sends back, oh, this email doesn't exist.
Lovely.
Yeah, so that's super, super competent governance, and this is a guy who clearly cares about, hearing from his constituents, right? Clearly. Called his phone, and there is no option to leave a voicemail. So again, super great. I found his personal Facebook and sent him a Facebook message. No response. So yeah. I don't know,
it shouldn't be that hard to contact an elected official, a state representative who should be responding to constituents. That's disappointing.
Yeah, super, super disappointing. The state senator whose district the strike took place in was a Republican, Gerald Allen. And a similar thing, but at least his email didn't come back that it doesn't exist. Okay, so this guy's email presumably exists. Okay, so that's a plus. And also, I was able to leave him a voicemail. So ahead of the Democrat here on those issues, but still no response. No response from Republican State Senator Gerald Allen. House District 16 is in the middle of a special election, so I sent a email, a phone call, and a Facebook message to the 2 Republicans who are in the runoff for the Republican nomination. No response from them. Senator Bobby Singleton, Democrat, near the district, his district is near the strike. Emailed, called him, left a voicemail, no response. Republican Senator Greg Reed emailed, called him on the phone, no response. Democratic Representative Chris England, and I was surprised by this because I actually have his personal phone number, and I called his personal phone number, and he did not reply, which is bonkers because he's been in, I don't know what his deal is. He was in support of, he was vocally supportive of the mine workers near his district. He spoke at some of their events, so I don't know why he didn't respond, but he did not. Sent him an email, phone call, no response. Republican Representative Bill Lamb did respond. He said, quote, "I always support management and labor being able to negotiate the best deal for them. But I've never walked a picket line, and I don't want to." So you know.
At least a little bit honest. I appreciate being to the point there.
Democratic Representative Curtis Travis says that he is in support of the workers for a better contract. He has never been to a picket line, and he has no plans to go, nor does he have any intention to sponsor any legislation in support of or in opposition to striking workers generally. A Democrat says this. A Democrat, "I've never been to a picket line. I have no plans to. I have no intention of sponsoring any legislation to benefit striking workers." A Democrat. Republican Representative Ron Bolton, he responded, and he probably, honestly, he may have had the best response. So here's what he said in his email to me. "I do support the workers' right to pursue better wages, benefits, and working conditions. I have not been to the picket line and do not plan to go, as I believe that the best way for the workers to achieve their goals is active engagement with the company in the negotiation process, and they know better than I do how to accomplish that. I have not sponsored any legislation and have no immediate plans to. Unions helped build the American economy, and I support workers' rights to better their pay and work environment." So there you go. That line about unions helped build the American economy was kind of surprising to me, coming from a Republican. But,
yeah, absolutely. So. I mean, Alabama Republicans in the legislature are not known to be labor-friendly, to put it mildly. So, yeah, that is a pleasant surprise. Hopefully that means, you know, there's room to work with a gentleman like that on certain issues, perhaps. You know, that's good to know. I hear you on the disappointment in terms of other responses, because we are seeing in other states where legislators are sponsoring legislation to support striking workers, such as including them in public benefits, unemployment benefits, or food stamps. You know, things like that could make a big difference when you are fighting these epic struggles against very powerful, wealthy corporations. And we see where sometimes the corporations will try to starve out the workers and wait them out. So it would be nice to see legislators taking that problem seriously. There's also other issues to address, of course, in terms of protections of constitutional rights of speech and assembly at the picket line and elsewhere. So, yeah, there's a lot that could be done and should be done. And I would like to see a little bit more engagement from legislators, because we hear a lot about them from all corners of both parties about being pro-business, you know, being champions of business, being business-friendly, championing workforce development. And, you know, the thing is, most of us are not business. We are not business owners. Most of us are workers. We work for the businesses. So where are our champions?
Yep, exactly. Very unfortunate. And, you know, it's another it's another thing, you know, they should support workers, striking workers generally, because it's the right thing to do, I think. But also, especially in this environment, I have never understood why. Well, I mean, I think the understanding is that they don't care. These are Democrats who are in gerrymandered districts with like 80-90% Democratic population, and so they have like basically zero incentive. You know, they're comfortable in their seat. They don't feel like anybody's going to challenge them, anything like this, and so that they don't feel a need to do anything. But from a perspective of like, if I were to be a Democratic politician who cared about not only my office, but about my office actually having power, if I were to be a person like that, there is no reason at all, and all of the reason to wrap yourself in the labor movement right now. That may not have been the case politically, you know, maybe 2 decades ago. But that's not the environment that we're in right now. there would be every political benefit, in addition to doing the right thing, every political benefit in wrapping yourself in the labor movement, in the language of class struggle, and supporting the working class against the owning class. And they're just not doing it. They're not doing it. And I think the reason in Alabama is what I said. These people don't care about increasing the power of their seats. They have their seats. They feel comfortable in their seats. They don't think they're going to be challenged. And so they are, so they're complacent. But if they were ever interested in increasing the power that their seat has, then that is what they would be doing.
Well, to your point, I mean, let's just remind folks that opinion polls are pretty clear that,
Right.
3/4 of the American public supports labor right now?
90% of workers under 30.
Right.
Of American people under 30.
Right. 90% of Americans who are young support labor. What is the approval rating of the Democratic Party?
Right.
It's not 75%. It's certainly not 90% among young people. So yeah, that I think just really reiterates your point there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I don't understand it. I really do not understand it. But, whatever. I'm not a politician, so.
Right.
So the big news, always typically the big three, what's going on with the UAW and the big three. So we're going to get to that right now. And the big updates around, the last week is the conflict between Bill Ford and Shawn Fain. And, I just think those two names, the two people, in many ways really, really encapsulate the conflict. What is going on here? Who is the fight between? Because Bill has his position because of his parents' parents, right? I mean, this guy is like literally like a feudal lord. His parents had the company, their parents had the company, and their parents had the company. So therefore, he should have the company and have enormous power over hundreds of thousands of workers directly, millions of workers indirectly in the supply chain, tens of millions of workers in the American and global economy, because of the situation of his birth. Okay? And even if you buy the argument, which I do not, but let's just say I did, even if you buy the argument that if you start a business, it should be yours in perpetuity to do with what you will, no matter who else or how many others have contributed to the project or what they have contributed to the project in terms of time, in terms of their life, in terms of bodily harm, tears, money. No matter what anybody else contributes to the project, if you are the one that begins it, it should be yours in perpetuity to do with what you will without input of anybody else. Even if you buy that argument, the idea that this ownership ought extend 4 generations, while generations of workers still have little to no say about the direction of the company. Right? I mean, by this time, millions of working people have contributed. It is not by virtue of the accomplishments of Bill Ford or his parents or his parents or his parents or their parents, right? It's because of the millions of workers that have contributed to Ford. And yet, neither them nor their descendants have any say by virtue of their birth. There are a couple of them that have been able to work their way up the corporate ladder, right? But by virtue of the fact that I am a Ford worker and I was born to a Ford worker, I have no say in the direction of the company. But this guy, by virtue of his birth, he does. The executive chairman. I don't understand that. I don't understand how you defend that. It doesn't make sense to me. It literally doesn't make sense to me. He went to a private high school, then he went to Princeton. He got a master's degree in business. He is a literal billionaire. because of his family. And Sean is the grandson of multiple UAW members. Remember, that didn't give him a right to control anybody's life. He began as an electrician in Kokomo, Indiana. He was elected. He's been elected to multiple positions, but now he is the first ever international president of the UAW to be elected directly from the members, by the members. So, I mean, that is really the conflict. That's the difference in the nutshell. These are the two sides, and the sides represent, should working people have the power in society, or should we be bossed around by people who make money simply because they have money? That's the conflict. And I know what side I'm on. Anyway, so, it's kind of an interesting encapsulation of the entire saga that's been unraveling over the past several months in this last week of back and forth. So, the updates surround the back and forth between Ford and Fain, and it started when Ford gave an address early in the week, and it was really hailed as this big deal because even though Bill Ford has been part of negotiations, of every negotiation for the past 30 years or so, he's never publicly commented. So on one hand, it is a big deal. Like, factually speaking, this has never happened before, and now it's happening. Wow, that's a big deal. But because of everything above, right, that he has his position because of the nature of his birth, it just really burns me up that we have to give a damn what this guy says, again, because of his great-granddaddy, right? Nobody cares what I have to say because of my great-granddaddy, because my great-granddaddy was a nobody. My great-granddaddy was in poverty in the Great Depression on all sides of my family, right? But this guy, the world turns to him because of his last name. It burns me alive. And I don't understand how that rage isn't in everybody who has to work for what they have. How does it not burn you up? Almost virtually every single person under the sound of my voice right now, everybody online, everybody in the radio audience, WZZA, WHIV, and WVNN here in Huntsville, even the conservative station here in Huntsville, virtually everybody under the sound of my voice has to work for what we have. But this guy, Bill Ford, because of his last name, the whole world turns to him when he has something to say. It's just, it eats me up. I don't understand how it doesn't eat everybody up. Okay, but so here was the overarching message that Bill Ford had. This was the theme and what he wanted to get across. Let's play this clip.
And I call on my great UAW colleagues, some of whom I've known for decades. Many are close personal friends. We need to come together to bring an end to this acrimonious round of talks.
Please stop. Please stop is basically the thing. And so, in support of his begging the UAW to capitulate to his demands, he does kind of a good cop, bad cop thing. And so first he pulls the super familiar, we're all family. We're in this together. Let's play this clip.
This should not be Ford versus the UAW. It should be Ford and the UAW versus Toyota, Honda, Tesla, and all the Chinese companies that want to enter our home market. Toyota, Honda, Tesla, and the others are loving this strike because they know the longer it goes on, the better it is for them. They will win, and all of us will lose.
So there we go. We're a family. It should be us versus the world. Ford and the UAW in it together. Ford versus the world. Ford and the UAW versus the world. So, isn't that nice? Isn't he sentimental? Isn't he so sweet? But then after that, he turns into something of a mob boss. And so let's listen to, we heard, good guy Bill Ford, and now let's listen to mob boss Bill Ford.
This is why Ford's ability to invest in the future isn't just a talking point. It's the absolute lifeblood of our company. And if we lose it, we will lose to the competition. America loses. Many jobs will be lost. So will future investments. We'll lose factories like the one we're in here today. And communities will suffer greatly.
It's a nice factory you got there. It would be a shame if something happened to it. It's really gross. Really gross to threaten people's jobs like that if you don't get what you want in your negotiations. And even more gross in light of the revelation that Fain made in his Friday address, where in part he responded to Ford. Let's take a look at what Fain revealed in his live stream.
So billionaire Bill Ford made his own speech this week, talking down to us and telling us what we should be willing to accept. Literally the next day, the company made an astounding announcement. Ford Motor E Company said they were going to give an additional $600 million in shareholder dividends this year. That amount of money alone would amount to about $1 an hour raise for all Ford workers for the entire life of this next contract. Dividends are just throwing money at Wall Street. And I don't have to tell you, lavishing money on people who are already rich doesn't improve the business, and it does not improve the economy. It doesn't make Ford more competitive, and it doesn't secure a future for Ford. Investing in our members does all that.
That's wild. Having the gall to say, oh, we need to be competitive. We need to be competitive. It needs to be us versus the world. And you have to take this in order that we might be competitive. And then the next day, literally the next day, throw out over $500 million to rich people, to people who are making money because they have money. If the UAW has to sacrifice, if the UAW has to bring down their expectations so that Ford should be competitive, why shouldn't the shareholders? Why shouldn't the shareholders? Why shouldn't people like Bill Ford? And that's how you know that all of this competition stuff is BS.
Right.
That's how you know that, because if there was even, a lot of propaganda is good because there's a nugget of truth there, right? That's how you distinguish good propaganda from bad propaganda, or propaganda that is lying to you. That's how you distinguish a good lie from a bad lie. The good lie has a kernel of truth. This doesn't even have a kernel of truth, because if there was a kernel of truth, you would see Bill Ford coming out and saying, here is not only what we are asking to take from the UAW, or what we are refusing to give to the UAW. Here's what we are willing to sacrifice. Here's the restrictions that we are willing to put on our earnings. Or here is how we will tie our earnings to the earnings of the UAW members, so that literally when we win, they win. That's what you would see. If there was actual concern about competition, you would see them saying, okay, look, we're in a really tight spot. We have all this competition around us. We really need to keep the wages and benefits no higher than this. So in good faith, here's our sacrifice. They never, ever, ever do that. And they have not in this round of negotiations. And immediately after preaching about competition, we need competition, they go and just shovel money out the door. Okay? So it's BS when you hear all of this. And don't buy it. And Shawn Fain reacted specifically to that language of, not only the competition, calling out the hypocrisy of saying we need to be competitive while shoveling money out the door to people who already have money. He also responded to the concept of is it the UAW and Ford versus the world? Is that how it is, and is that how it should be? Here's how Shawn Fain responded to that.
Bill Ford said it shouldn't be Ford versus the UAW. He said it should be the UAW and Ford against foreign automakers. I want to be crystal clear on one thing. The days of the UAW and Ford being a team to fight other companies are over. We won't be used in this phony competition. We will always and forever be on the side of working people everywhere. Non-union auto workers are not the enemy. Those are our future union family. Since the stand-up strike began, we've had thousands of non-union auto workers reaching out wanting to join our movement. So no, we're not going to partner with Ford in a race to the bottom. And we're not going to partner with the big three to match the low standards of the non-union automakers. Instead, we're going to organize non-union auto workers everywhere. Together, we're going to stand up and take on corporate greed. Right now, we're striking the big three like we've never struck before. Next, we're going to organize non-union auto companies like we've never organized before. And together, auto workers are going to fight to make sure that auto jobs everywhere are good jobs. Jobs that can sustain a family. Jobs that allow everyone to retire with dignity. Jobs that are essential to the green economy without sacrificing our union standards.
So there we go. Great message and exactly correct. Exactly correct. Tesla workers, Hyundai workers, they are not the enemy. They're in the same class as we are, and we need to treat them and regard them in that way, because that's the way that the working class will improve our lot. And that's the way that we are going to bring the ranks up. Not by regarding some sections of the working class as our enemy, but by regarding all of the working class as part of the same fight. So, really good stuff there. And so I'll wrap up this by going over some of the specific details. He's been mainly sharing highlights and like where things have moved, and so he really comprehensively reviewed the big issues in contract negotiations and where all of the big three stand. And so we'll go through those as well, just to keep the audience informed and let people know where things stand. The big issues are wages, wage tiers, COLA, profit sharing, temps, job security, work-life balance, and retirement. And so on wages, remember, we started at like a 7, 8, 9% raise over 4 years, amazingly. I mean, just really, and those were the proposals that he was throwing in the trash. And that's exactly where a 7, 8, 9% raise over 4 years after record inflation goes, in the trash. That's a BS offer. Insulting. Really gross. And UAW members should remember that, actually. And the entire working class should remember that, because that's what they would have given you if you would have accepted it. 7, 8, 9% raise over 4 years. Evil. Wicked. So that's where the companies were at the beginning, and now they are all at 23% over 4.5 years. So we're getting close to like a 3 times where they were at the beginning of negotiations, just on wages. I don't think they're quite where they need to be yet. The UAW is looking for significant double-digit pay raises to match average pay increases of the big three CEOs, catch up with inflation, and make up for decades of falling wages. And that's important to understand, because a 23% pay increase, really all that does is breaks them even in 2027 with where they were in 2019. That's all that does, a 23% wage increase. So, and it's also 23% over 4.5 years, right? When you hear 23%, that might sound like, oh, wow, I would like a 23% raise. Well, how would you like a 23% raise over 4 years? Well, that's actually not kind of out of the norm of what I would expect, right? That's not crazy. All that a 23% wage increase does over 4 years, it gets them basically where they were in 2019, which was not a record year for UAW wages, not by a long shot. Wage tiers, the UAW is demanding the elimination of all tiers. Ford has wage tiers eliminated at Rawsonville and Sterling, and that's their parts distribution centers. And so they've eliminated wage tiers at all of those places. At GM, Ford, and Stellantis, they have eliminated the wage tiers at parts distribution centers. They'll be making assembly wages, so that's big. That's big news. Wage progressions. This was another big thing. And when you think wage progression, you think, how long does it take from when I'm a new hire to when I hit top rate? So for me, that was 4 years. And for many UAW members, that has been 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 16 years. So enormous progressions. And UAW wants to bring it down to 90 days. 90-day progression to top rate. That's what it used to be at one time. Ford and GM are saying a 3-year progression for current workers, but GM wants to create a new tier and have 4-year progression for future hires. Obviously, the UAW is not going to they're not willing to create a new wage tier. And Stellantis is still on a 4-year progression, but that's all still less than it used to be. So making movement there. On COLA, the UAW wants COLA so wages keep up with inflation and our quality of life improves. And Ford has proposed to restore the 2009 COLA. GM is approaching 2009 restoration, but not yet there. And Stellantis still has a deficient COLA that is delayed for a year. On profit sharing, the UAW is looking for enhanced profit sharing formula and inclusion of temporary employees. Ford has improved their profit sharing formula by moving to total company profits, including Ford Credit, and temporary employees will be eligible. GM is going to be maintaining the current profit sharing formula, and temporary employees with 1,000 hours of work will be eligible. 1,000 hours of work. Do you know how long that is? That is over 4 years. Probably significantly over 4 years if temporary employees are also part-time. So why, and that's the thing about temporary employees. Why would you have a temporary employee for 4 years but for to abuse them and exploit them?
Yeah, that's not temporary.
That's not temporary. Stellantis wants to maintain the current profit-sharing formula as well, temporary employees not being eligible. And even, maintaining is improvement from where they were because originally all of the companies wanted concessions on profit-sharing at the beginning of negotiations. On temporary employees, the UAW wants to end the abuse of temporary workers by converting them to full-time after 90 days. Ford has offered conversion of current temporary employees with 90 days to full-time, and wage increases to $21 an hour for remaining and future temps. Automatic conversion of future temps is still being negotiated. The same thing is still being negotiated. Automatic conversion of future temps at Stellantis. They're saying they also want to convert thousands of current temporary employees to full-time, and increases of wages to $20 an hour for remaining and future temps. GM says they're willing to implement the conversion of current and future temporary employees with 1 year to full-time. Wage increases to $21 an hour for remaining and future temps. On job security, the UAW wants the right to strike over plant closures and the implementation of the Working Families Protection Program. And Ford and Stellantis have both granted the right to strike over plant closures. And that alone is really huge. Still not where they need to be on the Working Family Protection Program. GM has rejected the right to strike, as well as the Working Family Protection Program. On work-life balance, the UAW wants more time off, more holidays. Ford is willing to give 2 weeks of paid parental leave and Juneteenth, and that's where they all are. GM, Ford, and Stellantis, all Juneteenth plus 2 weeks of paid parental leave. On retirement, the UAW wants retirement security for all members. Ford is proposing an increased company contribution of 9.5% plus $1 an hour to 401k, $3 increase to pension benefit, and for current retirees, they are offering a deeply inadequate annual lump sum payment of $250. Surviving spouses would be eligible for payments. GM is saying they will increase company contributions to the 401k by 8% plus $1.25 an hour. They'll give a $3 increase to pension benefits, and for current retirees, they are offering deeply inadequate one-time lump sum payments of $1,000. For surviving spouses would not be eligible under GM's plan. And Stellantis is offering increased company contribution to 9.5% plus $1 an hour for 401k, $3 increase to pension benefits, and for current retirees, they've rejected all increases to retiree pay. So, obviously, as you can see, definitely some movement there. Bear Post says 1,000 hours. Oh, wait a second. Maybe I think I read something wrong. For some reason, I had in my mind 10,000 hours. You're right, Bear Post. I apologize. 1,000 hours is 6 months, maybe less with overtime. I apologize. We'll amend that in the clip. Thanks for mentioning that. I appreciate it. So yeah. That's where we are. That's where we are on that. Definitely, as you can see, some movement there, but not where they need to be. All solidarity with the UAW, and looking forward to their eventual win and hopefully getting a tentative agreement with one of these companies. Appreciate everybody in the chat for tuning in. Landon says, showing support from UAW 862. Appreciate that. Pittsburgh Dude 87 says, we need to be competitive in the race to the bottom. And in fact, that is what Ford and the other companies want. Landon says, Fain is a great leader, doing a great job. Hope UAW members keep morale high. Says, got that right, Landon. Landon, regarding the wage increases, says, I was hoping for at least 30%. I think that's where the UAW is. That's where the UAW seems to be, is that's kind of their bottom line is 30%. And that is where 30% is actually, you're going to be making some actual gains. It's not going to be huge. Remember, 23% is basically even with 2019, but that will be an increased quality of life. And so that's where we need to be. We need to be continuing to increase the lives, make them better. For UAW members and for all of the working class. Landon says COLA is non-negotiable. That's very, very true, very important. And remember with COLA, what that does, if you don't have COLA, cost of living adjustment, all of the risk of inflation is on the workers. Companies always talk about risk. That's why they say, that's why they say, people who make money because they have money, that's why they should make money for having money, because they're having the risk. They're having a risk. Never mind the fact that if you are, if you're making money by having money and by investing, what is the actual risk? The actual risk in that scenario, the worst case scenario, is that you lose all your money and you have to work. Okay? So the actual literal worst case scenario is that you become like everybody else. So, I think the risk argument is very silly, but they always say that. That's why they say they make the big bucks, is because they risk so much. They risk money while workers risk life, limb, permanent disability, injury, sweat, tears, blood. But they risk money, and they might have to be like us one day. Oh, that would be bad, having to be like us. But that's why they say they get the big bucks, is because they risk stuff. But when workers don't have COLA in union contracts, all of the risk for inflation is on us, right? Because we can't predict what's going to happen with inflation. Nobody would have predicted the huge inflation that we had. 10% inflation in 2019, right? When the last contract was negotiated and the last contract did not have COLA, nobody was expecting 10% inflation, and that may be small. Nobody was expecting 10% inflation, so who had to eat that? The workers did. The workers ate all of it. All of the risk of inflation was borne by the workers in the last contract. All of it. Every single bit. And so when you have COLA, you shift some of that risk onto the company. You say, look, if inflation increases, then the wage progression should increase. And that's only right. So there we go. Good stuff. Good stuff. Appreciate Sean Fain keeping everybody updated and the opportunity to update the audience. And I know that people are always waiting with bated breath for his weekly updates. And so it's good to get them. And yeah, Rael says Sean Fain is destroying the big three. Enjoy. Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, you know, if we want to talk about destroying the big three, they're going to destroy themselves if they don't, if they're not competitive in their wages and benefits and try to make them, you know, make themselves a, you know, gold star employer, we could say. All right. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and go to a break. We're going to be right back. We're going to get to Boss Watch, and we're going to get to some of this stuff with the Alabama Democratic Party. If you've got anything to add, 844-899-8857 is the phone number. But we've got lots of stuff to talk about. And in overtime, we're going to be going into another UAW story at Mack Trucks. They had a video to start the live stream that we're going to play for you. And then we're going to be talking to the Southern Workers Assembly. So lots of good stuff coming up. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough to keep their jobs. We need to fix this. Let's close the health care coverage gap. To learn more, visit coveralabama.org.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer, and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact Donna at their training center to start the process. That phone number is 256-415-7452. Again, that phone number is 256-415-7452. No experience is needed. Free training is offered, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is their mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Alabama's only union talk radio show. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We got another ad to read. Hometown Action is another new sponsor, returning sponsor. Appreciate their support. So as labor union members, we face our share of challenges in the workplace, but today I wanted to talk about a different kind of challenge, the climate crisis. We've all seen the fury of Mother Nature, the storms that can turn lives upside down in an instant. And that's why Hometown Action is launching our Climate Protection Project. We're heading out to 10 rural communities, listening to local folks and taking action with them to protect communities impacted by climate disasters. And we need you, our union brothers and sisters, to join us. Together, we can make a difference. Our strength on the job is undeniable, and now it's time to put that strength to work for the planet. Let's protect our communities, our families, and our future. Visit hometownaction.org today and sign up to volunteer for the Climate Protection Canvas. That is hometownaction.org. Also wanted to give y'all a quick announcement. My darling, beautiful wife saw something online about SAG-AFTRA, the SAG-AFTRA strike, and dressing up for Halloween. She was wondering if that meant that the union was requesting that nobody dress up for Halloween as a character from a struck film. That is not the case. SAG-AFTRA is only requesting that actors not dress up as characters from struck films. So no prohibition on the general public or no ask to the general public regarding Halloween. So dress as whoever you want this Halloween.
Well, except for racist characters. Don't do a racism in your Halloween costumes, please. Be better than that.
Yeah, that is. That's good. That's good advice. Mel in the Facebook chat asked me if I was aware of International Paper's latest closure announcements. I was not, but if you look online, you will see that International Paper is permanently closing a containerboard mill in Orange, Texas, and scaling back pulp operations in Florida and North Carolina, resulting in a total of 900 job cuts. Devastating. Really bad. Not good stuff, but appreciate that heads up, and maybe we'll be able to look further into that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to Boss Watch. Boss Watch is a segment that we do every week where we take a look at what bosses are doing, because bosses, like workers, are always on the move, but what they're doing is not always super great in many ways. They are a criminal syndicate, breaking the law, stealing, harassing, putting people in danger all the time, all across the country. And so we bring you a small selection from the U.S. South and the colonies of just some of the instances in which bosses have been caught by the authorities, right? I mean, many of these instances you can imagine, like minimum wage violations. In what scenario are you going to be able to get away with paying a worker less than minimum wage? Like, in what scenario would a worker be willing to take less than minimum wage? The only scenario is one in which the worker is incredibly precarious. And so you can imagine that workers that are in incredibly precarious positions might not be terribly likely to want to report their employer to the authorities. So, the only things that we can tell you are instances in which, against all odds, the employers have been caught. But there are no doubt
many instances of things like this going unreported and unpunished. So let's start in Kentucky, where the U.S. Department of Labor has obtained a federal consent judgment that requires the operator of a Hebron, Kentucky warehouse and distribution center to stop employing children illegally and to not violate federal child labor laws in the future. Very, very stringent consent order. The action addressed Win.IT America Incorporated's illegal employment of children, which investigators with the department's Wage and Hour Division discovered in August of 2023. Investigators determined that the company employed 2 children ages 11 and 13. 11! For months at its distribution center. Specifically, the division found several violations by Win.IT America of child labor provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act. These violations including employing one child to operate a forklift, which is a hazardous occupation for workers under 18, and tasking another child to pick orders in the warehouse, a prohibited occupation for workers under 16. In addition, the company employed both children for more hours than legally allowed and violated federal regulations that forbid employing workers under 14 years of age in non-agricultural occupations. In addition to ordering the company to comply with federal child labor regulations, the court required Win.IT America to pay $30,000 in civil money penalties and to hire a third-party consultant to provide semi-annual compliance training for all management personnel for a period of 3 years. Just for some context, in fiscal year 2022, the U.S. Department of Labor found child labor violations involving almost 4,000 children nationwide, an increase of more than 60% over the past 5 years. The department addressed those violations, assessing employers over $4 million in civil money penalties. Founded in October of 2013, Win.IT America Incorporated is the U.S. branch of Winit Information Technology Company, a Shanghai, China-based integrated supply chain solutions provider with more than 700 employees in the U.S., Australia, Germany, and Great Britain. Heading over to Florida, one of the country's largest public universities, which is surprising because I had never heard of it, has entered into an agreement with the U.S. Department of Labor in which the employer will pay almost $600,000 in back wages, read stolen money, and interest to resolve alleged pay discrimination identified in a routine compliance review. The review of Florida International University by the department's Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs alleged that from October 1, 2017 to from August 1, 2017 to August 1, 2018, the university paid 163 women employees less than men in similar positions. The institution's failure violated Executive Order 11246, which forbids federal contractors from discriminating in employment based on race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or national origin. In addition to paying back wages and damages, the employer agreed to set aside $125,000 for future pay equity adjustments and other pay equity related activities, and to take steps to make sure its compensation practices and policies are free from discrimination. Florida International University entered into an early resolution conciliation agreement to resolve the allegations. The university provides basic research, educational and research and development, consulting and security services to the federal government. It also holds contracts with the Department of Defense, the Agency for International Development, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Health and Human Services, and NASA. Florida International University is a multi-campus public university serving South Florida that emphasizes research as a major component in the university's mission. With a student body of more than 55,000, FIU is among the top 10 largest universities in the nation. Right here in Alabama, Dollar General has agreed to pay $1 million and provide other relief to settle a lawsuit filed by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission alleging that its hiring process violated the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, the federal agency announced last week. According to the lawsuit, After making job offers to work at its Bessemer, Alabama distribution center, Dollar General required applicants to pass a pre-employment medical exam, during which they were required to divulge past and present medical conditions of family members such as cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. The EEOC also alleged that Dollar General used qualification criteria that screened out qualified individuals with disabilities. For example, Dollar General rescinded job offers to applicants whose blood pressure exceeded 160/100 or who had less than 20/50 vision in one eye, even when those impairments did not prevent the applicants from safely performing the job. The EEOC filed suit after its Birmingham district office completed an investigation and first attempted to reach a pre-litigation settlement through its voluntary conciliation process. The EEOC sued on behalf of a class of 498 applicants who were required to divulge family medical history during the hiring process, and on behalf of another class of qualified applicants whose job offers were rescinded based on their impairments. Dollar General discontinued its practice of requiring pre-employment medical exams for these warehouse jobs after the lawsuit was filed. Under the 27-month consent decree settling the suit, in addition to monetary relief, Dollar General must review and revise its ADA and GINA policies and distribute them to all individuals involved in the hiring process should they resume requiring medical exams. In addition, Dollar General must require their medical examiners not to request family medical history. They must consider the medical opinion of an applicant's personal physician, and they must inform applicants how to request a reasonable accommodation if needed. The decree also requires Dollar General to provide annual training to all individuals involved in the hiring process on the ADA and GINA, and to post a notice to employees on their rights under these statutes and how to file a charge of discrimination with the EEOC. Heading over to Virginia, the U.S. Department of Labor has obtained a consent judgment in a Virginia federal court to recover over $200,000 in stolen wages and liquidated damages from a Williamsburg restaurant that shortchanged 62 employees of their overtime wages intentionally. The court action follows an investigation by the department's Wage and Hour Division that found restaurant Food for Thought and owner Howard Hopkins paid kitchen staff straight time rates for all hours worked, including hours over 40 in a work week, which denied them required overtime rates. The employer also failed to keep accurate records of employees' hours worked and did not display federal minimum wage posters as required. The order entering the consent judgment in the U.S. District Court on October the 4th requires the company and Hopkins to pay $100,000 in back wages and an equal amount in liquidated damages. They must also pay $50,000 in civil money penalties for the intentional nature of the violations. The order forbids them from future violations of the law. I always love that addendum to a lot of these consent orders. It's always such a funny thing. Like, oh, hey, these punishments, included in the punishment is you can't break the law again.
We'd rather you not.
Yeah, that's always a really funny add to that. But yeah, there we go. Boss Watch. So last up, there's been a lot of news relating to the Alabama Democratic Party. Adam, you've been following it a little bit closer than I have. What's been going on over there?
Sure. So, the big news politically in Alabama is the congressional district map. For those of you who maybe are outside of Alabama or have missed it, Alabama will have a new congressional map for the 2024 elections. A district court found that Alabama's maps were unconstitutional, or they violated the Voting Rights Act. Essentially, they deprived African American Alabamians of a second congressional district of their choosing. And so we're going to have a second congressional district that ostensibly will go to a black representative. And, of course, that'll be a second seat for Democrats. Currently, there's only one Democratic seat in Congress for Alabama of our congressional districts. That is held by Representative Terry Sewell. She's the only black representative in Alabama. So all that is expected to change, which should be, of course, a big win for Alabama Democrats who desperately need such a win. They were totally destroyed in the 2022 elections, so much so that in many cases, the Libertarians actually had more candidates on the ballot than Democrats.
Statewide they did.
Statewide they did, and also on my ballot personally in Limestone County, I know that was the case, and certainly I'm not alone there. And that was just kind of a taste of what that election was all about, right? Over 60% of Alabamians did not even participate in the 2022 election, right? So there's a lot to be done there. The Alabama Democratic Party has been in the midst of infighting for years, and it has reached a new stage to kind of catch people up. Back in 2019, the Alabama Democratic Party amended its bylaws, and at that point expanded certain caucuses like the Youth Caucus, the LGBTQ Caucus, other minority caucuses in the party. This was opposed on some level by folks in the Alabama Democratic Conference, which is the official black caucus of the Alabama Democratic Party, led by Joe Reed. And so there's been some back and forth over the past few years. A ally of Joe Reed, who is Randy Kelly, was elected back in 2022 under those bylaws, and pretty quickly went to work trying to change the bylaws. So in May of 2023, there was this really contentious meeting in Montgomery among all the folks in the Alabama Democratic Party, what they call the SDEC, the State Democratic Executive Committee. And folks actually, elect most of those. When you vote in a Democratic primary in the spring, you'll actually pick people to represent you in this body of the party. So in May, they had this contentious meeting. There were new bylaws that were adopted amid a controversial vote, a lot of allegations of this not being a free, fair election, free, fair vote. And the outcomes of it were the elimination of all these new caucuses that had grown up since 2019. And so folks took this to the DNC and challenged basically the legality of the new bylaws as well as their adoption. And it has gone through a hearing process. Both sides have gone back and forth. It was, my understanding, a 9-hour evidentiary hearing in Washington, D.C. at the DNC about this. So, yeah, you had the bylaws adopted in May. The challenge been going on all summer. I think it was this September when the 9-hour hearing was held in Washington. Both sides presented their point of view, and the DNC has ultimately ruled just in the last few weeks here with their resolution to this, supposedly. And so a couple of things that they established, first of all. According to the DNC, they argue that the chair of the Alabama Democratic Party, Randy Kelly, has not maintained a complete and accurate list of all the committee members during his tenure as chair. They argue that requisite notice of the meeting was not provided to a number of the committee members, including many of the at-large members of the diversity caucuses, right? So people weren't informed properly of the meeting as required. And at the meeting, current SDEC leadership attempted to impose a $50 fee on at-large diversity caucus members without providing them with prior notice of the fee, or that failure to pay the fee could be grounds for removal from the SDEC. And without a mechanism in place to allow these members to pay the fee once they were made aware of it, right? We spoke to someone on the show, I believe, who said that they tried to pay the $50 fine and were not allowed to. They were not made aware of it before the meeting. They showed up, were told, hey, basically you have to pay $50 to be allowed to vote and participate. They busted $50 out of their wallet and said, okay, well, tell me where to pay, and we're never even allowed to do that. And they did not get to vote. And they were, by all means, a legitimate participant in these proceedings. So you had the $50 fee, and what the DNC also said is, had these members received proper notice of the meeting and the fee, more members of the SDEC may have been able to participate in the meeting, thereby altering the outcome of the bylaws amendment vote. Because it was a close vote, some argued that it was not an accurate vote, but at the very least, the DNC argues that had there been proper notice, had the fee been handled properly, bottom line, more people would have voted. More people would have been there, more people would have participated who were there, and that certainly could have changed the outcome. And finally, they say that the new 2023 bylaws conflict with the DNC charter and bylaws by denying certain diversity constituencies an equal opportunity to elect at-large members of their choice, right? And so, for example, the LGBTQ caucus was dissolved by the state party, and instead the state party says, well, we can appoint people for you on your behalf, more or less, to a committee. That's not the same thing. And so the DNC has argued that there should be a resolution here. It's questionable how much authority they have to order such a resolution. Like, at the end of the day, you know, if folks just say, get lost, DNC, we're not going to do it, what can they do in exchange? I think there are things that they could do, but what are they willing to do is maybe the better question. So based on the commitments that the state party and the ADC as well made at the meeting, the DNC has ordered a new vote on the bylaws of the party, and they have also ordered that challengers be given an opportunity to review the proposed bylaws and provide comments before they are put to a vote. Something else that has to happen is that a accurate list of all the duly elected SDC members actually has to be prepared. That is pretty important to know who's actually eligible and supposed to be participating and voting. And so the membership list and the proposal for the bylaws must be submitted by November 28th. So just over a month from now, and a vote must be held on the compliant bylaws by February 1st, 2024. So it's going to be interesting to watch, you know, how this plays out. You know, there were statements from both sides more or less saying that they wanted to work together. They wanted to try to put some things behind them. There was some, I've seen other comments from other folks that makes me think that's not so likely. Obviously, this isn't the first time we've been down this road in terms of bylaw fights and squabbles over which faction is most influential in the party. So, you know, it'll be interesting to watch. We'll see what happens November 28th. We'll see what happens February 1st. But at the end of the day, as I open this segment, the bottom line is that the Alabama Democratic Party was not and has not been a viable political party in this state for quite some time, outside of a few token areas that has been gerrymandered. And as you alluded to earlier with that segment about the UAW workers, a lot of the Democrats who are in office are in safe Democratic seats.
All of them.
Yeah,
right?
basically
I mean,
all of them.
Is there a single Democrat in office in Alabama whose district is less than 70% Democratic voters?
I would have to confirm that, but I think you're right that the general trend is that these are not competitive seats, right? There are very few competitive seats in Alabama, period, right. Democratic or Republican. And so there's just a lot of need when you have over 60% of the population is not engaged in the political process, and there are good reasons why. That's a problem that we have to solve collectively. So it's my hope that all these political types can put some things aside, can begin to work together, because at the end of the day, working class people in Alabama need political representation, and we don't have any.
Yeah. All right, that is going to be it for us today on the first half of the show. Find us on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to be continuing for an hour and a half. We're going to be talking to the Southern Workers Assembly about their work here in the Southern United States. It's going to be a good chat. Also going to be talking about Mack trucks, taking your calls at 844-899-8857. That is 844-899-TVLR. Like the stream if you haven't yet. We've got 50, 60 people watching us and only 37 likes. Let's get the numbers up. And subscribe if you haven't yet. Subscribe to the channel. We are at 6,990 some odd subscribers. So I think
close to 7,000.
I think even by the end of the stream we can get to 7,000 if just a few of y'all aren't subscribed, and you go ahead and do that. So subscribe to the stream, like the stream, find us on Facebook and YouTube. All power to the workers. See you next week. Okay, we're off the radio now. Off the radio. Appreciate everybody for staying with us. Like I said, folks, we got another second half of the show for you. 844-899-8857 is the number. A couple of plugs we didn't get to. As always, Labor Notes has good stuff. LaborNotes.org/events. Coming up in November, they have assertive grievance handling. What to do when your union breaks your heart. And fight the boss, fix the climate. So that's going to be some good stuff to attend. LaborNotes.org/events. And start getting ready. Mark your calendars if you haven't already for the big convention in April.
That's right. Yeah, we talked about that. This is a good time to plug Shop Talk. This week on Shop Talk, I had Lisa from Labor Notes, and we talked about 10-minute meetings and really went through what the UAWG has done with 10-minute meetings and how that's an effective tactic, why it's effective, how you can do it. But we talked about her work with Labor Notes as well, and we talked about the Labor Notes Conference. It's coming up in April in Chicago, and there will probably be a few thousand people there. 4,000 was a number I've heard. It's going to be really remarkable. I know that it can be hard, especially for those of us here in the South, to get up to Chicago, but definitely looking forward to that. But if you can't make it in person, I think that's why it's great that they do offer so many virtual trainings. So labornotes.org/events. Definitely keep your eye out for those because, it's a great way to just kind of brush up on skills, to connect with folks, and we should always be learning. I think to me that's one of the, if I can emphasize nothing else in this movement, it's that we should always be learning, and so I really appreciate what they do to facilitate that.
Yep, absolutely. April 19th to the 21st. The 2022 conference had 4,000 attendees, and they're expecting that many again this time. So stay tuned, folks. We are going to go ahead and go into overtime. OT. We're going to take a quick break, get something to drink, and we'll be right back, folks. Stay tuned.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
I think Adam. I think I may have done something wrong with the show, or with the call-in studio. And I think I accidentally just ended it, but that's what I wanted. Maybe I didn't. Can you hang up and call back in to the call-in studio and put that back up and bring it back up? Because I think I may have done like accidentally made it so that people can't call in. I don't know, but I figure you can just start and stop, and that'll work.
Yeah, I'm getting it back up.
Cool. All right, yeah. So, folks, appreciate everybody tuning in. Saw somebody wanting to call in. 844-899-8857 is the phone number. Bear with us, and we'll get you on the line. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate everybody liking the stream. Up to 45 likes. Appreciate it. That's always good to see. Good to see folks tuning in. TVLR.fm/donate if you want to make a one-time or monthly recurring donation. TVLR.fm/donate. You can also buy our merch. TVLR.fm/merch. Yeah. All right. We still working on that, or we got it back up?
Let's see. I think we should have the call-in studio back up. So if you want to try again, definitely do that. In the meantime, I just wanted to say, a couple of words. Really appreciate everyone who's tuning in. And for those of you who don't know, we do air live on WVNN, the right-wing talk radio station in Huntsville, Athens, every Saturday from 9:30 to 11. And you are listening to Overtime, which starts at 11 o'clock, airing online only on YouTube and Facebook. We got our start on WVNN, which is the birthplace of Sean Hannity and home to all sorts of reactionary propaganda that we find objectionable. But we do think it's important to get a different perspective out there to multiple audiences. We're happy that a portion of the show is replayed during the week on WZZA, the historic black radio station in Northwest Alabama, and on WHIV, a community radio station in New Orleans. We released the full episode on Spotify, Apple, and the various podcasting apps, so please subscribe to us on your app of choice and give us a good review. That helps. Throughout the week, clips of the show are released as standalone videos on YouTube and in some cases on TikTok as well. So if there's a specific segment or interview that you want to find, we try to make it easy for you. Again, just do us a favor, hit subscribe, hit like, and all of our content is free. So special thanks to all of you who donate, all of you who comment and call in, all of you who have liked us, shared us, and reviewed us. Your engagement on social media and the podcasting apps really does help, and that's a quick, easy, and free way to support the program. If you believe it's important to have our own media of, by, and for the Southern working class, please consider supporting us however you can, and please share with your coworkers, friends, family, and neighbors. We know there's a lot of good causes to support, and our audience are working folks with limited incomes. So if you find value in our project and you're willing to chip in a couple bucks, it would mean a lot. We've got some great stuff planned as we grow the project, and we can't do it without you. So all that said, I do think we have a caller on the line. Do you want to try to get to a caller before we have our guest on?
Yeah, sure. Really quick. This one's, I know this one is infinite content, but
okay.
Yeah, we'll get to them. I hadn't seen the other guy call in, so looks like he's going to have to wait till after the interview if he wants to call in. But that'll be fine. We can let infinite content come on, and got to be quick though, because we got our folks, the next guest.
Yeah, Southern Workers Assembly is coming on. Yeah. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah. So 267 area code infinite content. That's the username on YouTube from Philadelphia. Thanks for the call. What's on your mind, brother?
Hey, how you doing? Oh, good gosh, I didn't realize my voice sounded so horrible today. How y'all been?
Doing well, brother. Doing well.
So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that SEPTA, the regional transit agency in Philadelphia, is planning on going on strike like at the end of October, like in a week and a half. So that's going to be that will cause major problems because every time SEPTA goes on strike, it causes havoc in Philadelphia metro area. But it's not servant labor, but it's labor nonetheless.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
Now,
yeah. Do you know like how
I've been trying to talk with some workers, and they said they're trying to work it out, but they're kind of keeping things under the vest,
Right.
up on the low, because they don't want to put out the fact really that a strike's going to happen and it's going to basically shut. Here's the thing: the strike will be depending on how the Phillies do, because they're in the NLCS. One thing SEPTA won't do is strike during the World Series. So they will definitely keep the buses and stuff running during the World Series, and if they'll probably have subways running so people can get to Eagles games. But all the other buses and stuff, they're going to eat all of that. And but SEPTA has like 3 different unions. They have a union that works with the city in Philadelphia proper. They have a union in the suburbs, and they have a union that works on the trains. So it's 3 different unions, but they're all coordinating the strike at the same time. Now, I just want to make that known. But the another thing, I read that article on Yahoo where Bill Ford was running like, oh, the UAW going on strike might affect our finances for the future. Guess what? Strikes ain't meant to be convenient. They're meant to be disruptive. You know what's going to disrupt your finances even more? The amount of revenue and profit that you're going to lose during these strikes. Right?
Yeah. No, it's a super easy way to stop the strikes, and that's to give the union what they're asking for.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't have to give them everything because you have to come to compromise. Compromise means not everybody gets what they want, but they need to go ahead and give the union at least 75% of what they're asking for.
Right.
And I believe that's the simplest solution to the problem. They're like, oh, all these other companies will come in. Well, when you're not making cars, guess what? Other companies can come and make cars. So the best way to get cars made is to pay your workers, because they're the most important stakeholders of any business. I want to hear about shareholders. Shareholders aren't doing the work.
That's right.
Employees are the most important stakeholders of any business. I just want hear speak my shit and let y'all go. Solidarity Brothers, holla.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.
All right. Let's go ahead and bring on the folks from the Southern Workers Assembly. Really looking forward to this conversation.
All right, cool. Let me actually get everybody on screen and get that going.
Yeah, so the Southern Workers Assembly is a network of local unions, worker organizations, and workers that are in organizing committees committed to building a rank-and-file, democratic social movement unionism as a foundation for organizing, uniting, and transforming labor power throughout the South. That is a great goal. We support it, and we have I think we've had some people from the Southern Workers Assembly on the show before, but I don't know if we've done a deep dive into what they into their mission and what they're up to. So really looking forward to this.
Yeah, so welcome to the Valley Labor Report, and I wanted to give you a chance to just kind of introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what got you involved in the movement before we get into the Southern Workers Assembly and what y'all have planned.
Great. Yeah, sounds good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Sound great.
Great. So, yeah, my name is Ajamu Dillahunt, and I'm a member of the Southern Workers Assembly, proud to serve on the coordinating committee. My work in the labor movement has primarily been with the Black Workers for Justice since its founding in 1982, and I'll say a little bit about that later. And as a postal worker for 25 years, during which time I served as a local president and a state director of research and education. So that's how I kind of come into the movement. We're here in North Carolina, which is an important state in the South in terms of trying to organize the kind of movement that we need. I appreciate you kind of laying out what it is we want to do. The assembly was started in 2012 in Charlotte. And Charlotte was the site of the Democratic Party convention that year. And a lot of people were getting together to kind of demonstrate and oppose the Democratic Party agenda, which really didn't address the needs of workers. And so we were there for that, but we were there primarily to talk to other workers about building a movement that would counter what it is the Democrats and the Republicans are doing, to talk to each other, to try to build a network of folks across the South. And so we spent the weekend with folks from Kentucky and Tennessee and Mississippi, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Florida, probably a few other states that I'm leaving out. But defining the kind of mission that you laid out, that builds a movement of rank and file workers that is geared towards social movement unionism. And just to say a little bit about that, and that's a unionism as we see it that is not just limited to the workplace, with wages and benefits, which are certainly important, but is broader than that. And that relates to the broader social movement on the outside that's fighting for health care, fighting for education, for housing, fighting against police violence, those kinds of things. That's the social movement unionism we're talking about, that we connect to that. And with the recognition, that workers' lives are not just limited to the workplace, to the factory or the fields or the hospital or the buses that they drive or wherever, but that they have lives that requires them to have good health care, that good housing, that children need education, and so on. And so we see the social movement unionism as important and as a kind of counter to business unionism that just limits the work that unions do to the immediate workplace issues. So that's how we've been operating. The rank and file aspect we think is very important, that the rank and file is a part of setting the agenda and leading the work. And that's too often we find in the labor movement that that's not the case, and the work is very top down and dismisses the voice of rank and file workers. And so we're kind of counter to that. The work that we want to do, though, friends, is that we want to bring people together in local areas, in workplaces that are beginning to organize or that need to be organized, and to get them up and rolling, to start to build some kind of organization in the workplace, some kind of resistance, and then to be in touch with workers in other workplaces in the same city or in the same county, and so that they can help each other out in times when they're trying to organize, when they're fighting the bosses, when there's pressure coming on them from elected officials, from the state, whoever, to have some folks to bond together with and to build a movement. And as we've said, it's not just workers that are organizing for the first time, but also local unions that need to be involved in part of this process. And so we've been building that. Right now, we've got probably 11 assemblies that have come together. And it's been long and hard work over the years, with a particular uptick since the COVID pandemic brought a lot of people out. And then, of course, the strike activity of late has really ramped up the activity. So we've got folks in the Richmond area. We've got an assembly in Richmond, in the Tidewater area, Raleigh-Durham in North Carolina, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, Charlotte, Asheville, Atlanta, New Orleans, Northern Kentucky, Tampa, and Columbia, South Carolina. And then there's also interest that's been shown by folks, of course, in Charleston and in Greenville, North Carolina, here in our own state. So the network is expanding and really has gotten a boost from the labor conditions and the labor resistance and fight back that we've seen over the last year. And, you talk about it on the program all the time, but, the UPS mobilization, of course, the UAW strike, the writers, the actors, and even in our own state, in the public service sector, the Durham city workers.
That's right.
Going out. So we've got that kind of environment that's developing, and we really think that it's urgent for us to take advantage of it right now in this particular moment. The politics of the country with the lurch to the right and the uncertainty about what's going to happen after the next election really, demands that we get moving on building something together, and building some unity. So a couple of other points, and I mean, you've dealt with all kinds of organizing that's going on in the South. What we like to emphasize that getting a union and a contract is a goal, but maybe not the only goal. And given the experiences of so many organizing drives, the road towards an NLRB election that's successful and then a successful contract is very, very difficult, very difficult. And so it's not that we're discouraging that, but we're saying that in addition to those efforts, that many workplaces are going to have to get started on their own. And we're seeing it, just people spontaneously getting together, building a workplace committee. Our organization, Black Workers for Justice, since 1982, has followed a practice of helping workers build committees inside the workplace just to do anything. It might be just a health and safety committee, a women's rights committee, anti-discrimination committee, whatever, but some form of organization that helps to build some power to be able to fight back in the workplace. And with the development of those committees in multiple workplaces, we think that the infrastructure for building the Southern Workers Assembly in a city or in a county or in a region is actually there, so people can cooperate together. Just a case in point, the organizing that's been going on at Amazon in a number of cities, but particularly in Raleigh-Durham area, has gotten support from the Southern Workers Assembly, doing plant gate work, out there flyering, trying to get people's information, meeting with them to set up different kinds of activities inside the plant is something that the Southern Workers Assembly can do. That's some of the big names, but even the smaller kinds of workplaces, that's important. But it also includes bringing in folks that are organized already. So, for example, in Richmond, we've got education workers, people who are involved with the teachers organization there, the teachers union, they're involved. And it goes across sectors, people in the distribution and logistics area like Amazon, but also in the public sector. We've got folks. We've got folks that are working in the fast food sector. We're happy to say that the Union of Southern Service Workers is connected now with the Southern Workers Assembly. They've been fighting for years for 15 an hour and a union, and they manifested that last year and are continuing to work. But they're part of this general motion that we're a part of. So what I want to kind of say here too, you guys know it because the program is located in this critical region of the country, but the South is so important. The South is so backward in many ways, not by accident, of course, by design, but we suffer the worst economic conditions. The median earnings in southern areas are among the lowest in the South. In the country rather. Poverty rates are above the national average. In Louisiana and Mississippi, for example, 1 in 5 residents in poverty. And then the child poverty rate in the South is 29% higher than any other region. And then we also, and it's kind of interesting when you talk about the radio program coming in as part of the right-wing network, right? It's that right-wing network that's been part of the support for the white supremacy that the South has witnessed and historically, and the Jim Crow that we faced for so long, which has had an impact on Southern organizing over time, particularly the Taft-Hartley Act, and I know you guys have talked about that in the past. But it's right to work provisions still prevail, and in fact, more and more states have gone in that direction. We've lost some states that had collective bargaining rights and didn't have to worry about dealing with those kind of laws. But it's also impacted public sector workers. Here in North Carolina, for example, there's legislation that prohibits collective bargaining amongst state employees. And all of this, we have to underscore, came out at the height of the Jim Crow era here in this country. So we're still having to fight our way through that right now. And I think what we're seeing in terms of all the workers stepping forward, Black and white, brown, Native Americans, that we've got some motion that we really need to take advantage of at this moment if we're going to make some breakthroughs. So that's I'm going to kind of leave it at that. And see if you have any questions you want to ask in particular about the SWA. And then I'd like to share something about the school that we're excited about and would like to have your listeners consider attending if that's something that might help their work.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, there was a lot you said that was just really great, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the work that SWA is doing because, as you put it, we've got to meet the moment. And there are so many threats and crises that we're facing. There's so much potential that we're facing as well. When we talk about the public support of labor, as you talked about, the conditions have really gotten to the point that more and more workers are looking around and interested in organizing, and we've got to be there to support them and to build that interracial people power that can transform the South, because we have to transform the South if we're going to really save this country. So I really appreciate what y'all are doing and getting workers connected across industries, across unions, non-union as well, because, I think that is important. Only roughly 1 in 10 workers in this country are members of a union right now. And those other 9 out of 10 still need to organize. And even if it is intermediate steps before they get to a union, I love that y'all are working on just building power in the workplace, however you can, whatever that looks like, under various conditions. And shout out for y'all's work in the Carolinas, because I know the Carolinas are maybe the toughest spot in the South to organize, just based on y'all's union density alone. We think we've got it bad in Alabama, but I know y'all have got your work cut out for you out there as well. So all that to say, I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And yeah, tell us about the Southern Worker School. Really looking forward to hearing about that.
Sure. So, we've done probably 5 or 6 schools during the lifetime of the assembly, dealing with various topics over the years. What's been called upon workers to do, what do they need to learn, and so on. So always a kind of nuts and bolts school, how to organize, how to hold a meeting, how to do a flyer, how to do a press conference, how to map your workplace, all of those kind of basic things. We've always included that. And we'll be doing that too in this one. Let me just start by saying it's November 10th through the 12th here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so we hope people will be interested in coming. What we're going to do, though, in terms of how to build an assembly, so people who want to build an assembly in Alabama or in any other place, that there'll be opportunities to kind of get the step-by-step building process, to hear from other people who have done it, to learn the challenges they face and the victories that they scored. There'll be that. But then there's also going to be discussion on meeting the opportunities of the moment, and that we just talked about. And we feel like the way to do that is through coordination and collective action. That's and on a broad scale, it's got to be done. So we'll spend a lot of time on that. The introduction to the whole school take place on Friday, and we've got a very interesting panel that's titled Building Strike Power in the U.S. South. Okay, so in the U.S. South, not just across the nation in the Midwest or in the East, but across the South. And on that panel, we'll have the Durham City Workers that I talked about earlier, Arkansas Tyson Poultry Workers, from Charlotte. We'll have UPS workers, the Truckers Movement for Justice, Columbia Starbucks workers, and more, but all kind of bringing their lessons and their experiences. And of course, as your caller said earlier, I mean, this issue of the strike is very important. It's a major tool. It's not to be used as a toy, of course, but carefully implemented is a very important tool for us. Whether you're in a large union like the United Auto Workers or the Teamsters, but even in smaller units and in other industries, it's really important. So bringing that together, listening to that, it'll be important on Friday. Then we'll have sector and industry breakouts. So, teachers will be able to get together, transportation workers will get together, construction, all of the different sectors to kind of share information, share experiences, and to develop the contacts to continue to be in touch with each other over the next months and years as they build their work. And then a discussion of the political period. And, you guys agree with us that this is just a critical period. So we got to know what it means. What does this next election mean? What does it mean that so much of the budget now is being shifted towards the military? What does it mean in terms of the threats against Social Security? And what about Medicare for all? Universal health care, all of those kinds of things are really important. And even to the extent of how is the government, local governments and state and national governments going to respond to the growing labor movement? Right. Strikes don't happen in a vacuum, and there's always some kind of response, of various types. And we've got to be prepared for them. We've got to know what to look for and how to defend ourselves against that. And then, lastly, as in any conference or school of this type, to build the networks with other folks so that they'll be able to, in the future, stay in touch through the SWA networks, but also independently of each other. So it's not, our organization is not really super formal and tight-knit where people have to go through some kind of structure to talk to each other. People are just getting it on after they meet each other. And we encourage that, and we're looking forward to that happening in November.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for Southern activists, for Southern workers, whether you currently have a union, whether you don't have a union, if you're interested in learning more about activism and organizing in the workplace and among your fellow workers in the community. I think that's is really great. And like you said, one of the best things that comes out of events like this is the networking and just the connections that you make, the relationships you build, because you're going to meet people who are working on stuff that inspires you. You're going to meet people, who are working on things that are similar to what you're working on and may have some tips and tricks and some things to avoid. And you're going to meet some folks that, you'll be glad that you did someday, somewhere. You just never know, right? And so and that's one of the things that always amazes me about this movement is sometimes you meet folks and you don't necessarily know why, but 6 months from now, a year from now, there's a struggle that pops off, and now you need that connection, right? And so I think that's one of the great things about what y'all are doing. So remind us the date. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina, November 10th through the 12th, correct?
That's right. That's right. And of course, for information on the conference, you can write info at southernworker.org. And I've got I don't know if you guys can put this up. There's a long address that people can also get in touch with. It's an invite. Let's see. Yeah, let's go with the info at southernworker.org. That's probably the easiest one.
Yeah, absolutely.
For
Info
people to
at
deal with.
southernworker.org if you want to hit them up and find out how to get plugged in, whether that's, getting plugged in with Southern Workers Assembly, like in your community locally and doing some work with them, or specifically about this Southern Worker School. Definitely encourage all of our listeners and comrades out there who can make it to Charlotte, November 10th through the 12th. Definitely do that. I think it'll be a great opportunity for folks. And Ajamu, I really appreciate your time and appreciate the work that you're doing. I'm looking forward to connecting more with y'all and just getting more plugged in with the work that y'all are doing and vice versa. Let y'all know what we're up to in North Alabama. I wanted to give you a chance. Do you have any parting words for Southern workers and activists this morning?
Well, yeah, I just want to say, again, just thank you guys, not, just for having us on, but for what you do in general and being in the belly of the beast, so to speak, requires a big salute to you guys for doing it and having the impact that you are. And I just wanted to emphasize, I talked earlier about Southern social movement unionism. Just wanted to point out today, I'm in Eastern North Carolina at the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network annual summit. And I say that to say that we're connected to the environmental justice movement and in ways that deal with labor. And we've done this for years, and it's not that kind of connection. But on the other hand, a number of our members are down in Charlotte on the picket line with UAW right now. So it's that kind of breadth of work that we're doing, that many of your listeners are doing, and we just need to bring it all together to build some power in the South. So that's why we say organize the South to build workers' power. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hell yeah. Appreciate that. Thanks again. And again, y'all can hit up info at southernworker.org if you want to get more details on the Southern Worker School. Again, it'll be November 10th through the 12th in Charlotte. Check out Southern Workers Assembly. Check out Black Workers for Justice. Doing some great work. Really appreciate it. And thanks again for joining us this morning. All right. And so, again, I really do appreciate what they're doing, and I do encourage listeners, if you're in the Charlotte area, if you're in the Carolinas. Unfortunately, Jacob and I have a prior obligation. We're not going to be able to make it. I wish we could because it sounds like a great event, and I'm hoping to make it next time. Hopefully it's going to be very successful. There'll be another Southern Worker School soon, and would love to do that. But, yeah, I really appreciate what they're doing, and I know we've got some listeners out there in the Carolinas. I know we've got a few, so definitely get plugged into what they're doing. I would love to hear about the Durham public sector workers. I bet you that's going to be a really cool panel.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been doing some awesome stuff. So,
yeah,
looking forward to hearing the results. So, Adam, before the show, I told you that we got a voicemail, and it seemed really, just right up your alley to respond to. So let's play this voicemail and get your reaction.
Okay, sure.
Hey, what's going on, Valley Labor Report? I'm a big fan of the show. I've been listening for the entirety of my organizing career. After organizing a few shops, I got a job with a big local union here in the Midwest. And I'm wondering if y'all have any tips or tricks for breaking the labor management model. I find that, I'm kind of stuck in between my members and, my union, I guess, and I'm not sure how to break out and how to actually make change around here instead of just scheduling another meeting with a boss who's not going to do anything. So just looking for advice on how to kind of represent my members better. Thanks.
So yeah, Adam, like I said, I thought that sounded pretty familiar to pretty similar to your own experience. So I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, a few things that come to mind. I mean, for those who aren't familiar, I worked for the Alabama Education Association for over 5 years. I got my start as a high school history teacher, got very activated as an educator, got very involved both inside and outside of the association, and ultimately took a field staff position in summer 2015 to represent the Huntsville City Schools employees who belong to AEA. And so, like I said, I did that for over 5 years. And I came from, rank and file perspective, from a militant perspective, and from an organizing, wanting to embrace organizing. I didn't have a ton of experience as an organizer, but I knew that organizing was going to be important to make gains for educators, because I looked around and I was wondering, who's going to fight for us? Who's going to do something? Who's going to say something? Because this isn't acceptable. What we're experiencing as teachers, as librarians, counselors, custodians, cafeteria workers, none of us were getting a fair shake, and it was important that somebody do something about it. And, I felt like embracing organizing, and as well as even some of the social movement unionism that our brother from Southern Workers Assembly just talked about, I thought that was important. The first thing I would say, though, is he already identified that he's sort of caught in the middle, and that's true because you're a staffer, right? And I would argue that the best place for change comes from the rank and file themselves. And as a staffer, you can do what you can to support that kind of rank and file momentum. You can also continually be caught in the middle between the institution, the union as an institution, and its management and bureaucracy on the one hand, and then, the membership on the other. Or in some cases, there's other dynamics as well, right? Because you have elected leaders of the membership, which aren't always necessarily reflective of the rank and file, however you want to interpret that. And so, yeah, you can be caught in a bind there, and it's very easy to outkick your coverage on one end or the other in terms of you get too far out ahead of the members, or you can get too far out ahead of the institution and your supervisors. It's a very difficult dynamic to be in if you are a staffer for a labor organization and you do have this passion for militancy and for organizing and for worker power, but you are in that staff role. And it's even more difficult if the people in the institution above you, whether that's the elected leadership and or the staff management, the executive directors and the like, if they don't share that same vision, you are going to be caught in a bind. And, a veteran organizer once told me at one of my earliest trainings that the most common way that work ends is in burnout or sellout. And I didn't want to be either one of those. I burned out. I didn't sell out. Believe it or not many people even tried to buy me out. I don't know what that means. Maybe they knew it wouldn't work. I'm gonna take that as the right answer. But so yeah, I think it's a difficult dynamic to be in. But here's what I really want to emphasize, which is build relationships. Build relationships with the members, with the coworkers that you have that you can trust, because presumably you have a staff union as well. If not, maybe that's something you need to be working on. But build relationships and really lean on that, and start small. If you're trying to introduce organizing into a local that really hasn't done anything, you can't expect to lead some massive rally, just like flip a switch and embrace that overnight. It's going to take some time, and you got to start small. And maybe it starts with 3 or 5 workers getting together for a brainstorming session. Maybe it starts with, of course, in my context in the school system, right, it was just like, if I could get somebody to come to this school board meeting with me, at least somebody, right, that's a win. And then if next time they can bring somebody else, then there's another win. So yeah, you just start small. I think as you listen to the members and get to know the members, you will get a better sense of the issues that are widely felt and deeply felt. And those are the issues you want to work on, issues that unify folks, that bring the members together, issues that you can have wins that can build on wins, where you can introduce some organizing into your campaign and into your work, and build confidence among the members that they can do it, right? Because sometimes it's just a not knowing. No one's ever asked them to wear a red shirt on Friday in solidarity, right? It's not that they're opposed. It's not that they don't know how to do it. Maybe no one's literally ever asked them to do that. Maybe no one's ever had a conversation with them about, why would that be a good thing to do? Why would we all wear red shirts on Friday? Well, what kind of message does that send? And what are we trying to track from that, right? Who shows up and wears the red and who doesn't? Where are we strong? What departments all showed up in red and which departments didn't show up? All those kinds of things. So those are just some things that come to my mind. I hesitate because I think at the end of the day, a lot of really bright, passionate, talented people want to change this labor movement and make it better. And a lot of us end up in staff positions because of that, or in spite of that. And that's not always the best position to make that transformation. I think we need good people in those staff roles, absolutely. But it can never be led by staff. And, that was certainly an experience that I had in Huntsville, is that, I felt like that was an area where I could have done a lot better. And anytime you can have opportunities to build power from the bottom up, take advantage of it, however small it may be. So those are just some thoughts. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that all sounds good, and I think in particular, trying to, and some of it is, you mentioned, or you've talked to me before about trying to, empower members and delegating some tasks to them that they can do, and one added benefit of that is it takes work off of your plate, but it actually does. It does help them kind of build the muscles to exercise power themselves, and to feel like they have a stake in the union. And so, I think that's always good. I guess one question that I would have would be, to obviously the change has to come from the members, because if you, like you said, if you outkick your skis as a staffer and the members don't support you, and in your case, even when the members support you, the management of the union is just going to kick you out. They're going to fire you because they don't like the direction that you're trying to take the union. So it has to come from the members. And so how do you make, what would be some of your thoughts about how to make the membership see that there's only so much that you can do as staff, and that it really has to be them leading the charge?
Well, I think you have to be honest. Maybe carefully honest, but honest. I think you have to keep it real with members about that, because sometimes there is an impression of like, oh, well, you are the union, right? Like, you're the staffer, like, right. You're the union guy. You're supposed to fix this, or you're supposed to take care of that.
Right.
And people pay dues, and they expect a certain amount of services, and we have to factor all that in. But yeah, I think you have to be realistic with folks about it, and I think you have to, again, that's where the relationships come in handy, because the more you have authentic relationships with folks, the more you can have that conversation in a real way. And, I think you just continually have to bring it back to the members and put it back on them of like, well, what are y'all going to do about it, right? Yes, something is bad in the workplace. Okay, now what are we going to do about it, right? Not like, what are you, the union? Like, no, like, we are the union, right? So we're all in this together. So how are we all going to work together? What can we do about said problem, said issue? But yeah, it's tough. It's tricky. I certainly don't have any magic formula for it. I wish I did. I'd be a lot better off probably, but all I can learn from is the experiences that I've had, and I've certainly done it well, and I've done it not so well. So I think local governance can be a dynamic to factor in, like, what do they want? So yeah, you are caught in the middle between the various institutions as well as the rank and file itself, but ultimately, if you stay true to your values, you can sleep at night.
Right. And that's really going to be kind of the big important thing.
That's what counts. That's what has always counted to me. And, maybe I went to sleep at night knowing I was broke, but I would rather do that than sell out the membership, than betray the membership, or to simply just take the route of expediency, just to make it easier on yourself and hurt the membership as a whole.
And, that kind of, this conversation is part of the broader conversation about, building up unions, and that's kind of been part of a theme of the second half of the show, with the Southern Workers Assembly, and then answering this question. And that goes, it ties into a question that we got some time ago that we've been sitting on and haven't had the chance to answer during a show. But, somebody asked about, basically from the other side, like, if I'm a member of a union, how do I go about trying to, build support among the other members for a more militant, democratic kind of union? And the question specifically was, talk about the nuances and difficulties of being a leftist trying to organize within a union with members of all different backgrounds, and even, potentially some pseudo-fascists, how to build solidarity and class consciousness without using scary words. And that's definitely, without using scary words is a very important thing, I think, because when people identify as a leftist or a socialist or whatever, those are definitely trigger words, and they make people feel weird in some places. But if you just talk about what you want to do, what is it that you want, what is the change that you want to enact on society in our workplace? And the change is, we want more power to be in the hands of the working class. And, that's really not that scary, but so just a little bit of a comment there, but how would you answer that kind of from the other side as a member? What would you think, what do you think would be some words of advice there?
Well, I do think it goes back to relationships and, building respect on the job. Obviously, doing activism and organizing stuff here in Alabama for the past decade or so. If you haven't figured it out, I'm a little bit to the left of most people in Alabama. But that hasn't stopped me from, having some success in coalition work and finding unlikely partners and working together with folks across different backgrounds and different perspectives uniting around common interest. I had some of my AEA members who were Republicans and who certainly knew that I disagreed with them on politics, but they were still excellent for me in terms of showing up as building reps, showing up at school board meetings when the call to action comes out, writing the legislator when I asked them to. And so I think it was because we were able to work together on shared interests. We all want to be treated with respect and dignity. We all want to be able to go home to our families safely at the end of the day, spend time with our families. We all want to be able to provide for our families and make enough to do that. We all want to retire with dignity and comfort after a life given to labor. Those are just some areas where we can find common ground, I think. Will it work with everybody? No, of course not. But yeah, I think it's all in your approach of like, are you approaching people as like fellow workers, as your brothers and sisters? Or are you like preaching at them like the unconverted, And I think sometimes people who are very politicized make that mistake. Whether it's using like buzzwords or triggering language, yes, which is something that happens, but also just the approach in general. I think sometimes it can really turn people off. And I've always had, I would say, a fair amount of success in being able to get along with folks and talk with folks and listen to folks who don't necessarily share my politics. And I've had plenty of people who don't share my politics who still, maybe respect my advocacy or organizing because they see why I'm doing it. And that goes back to your point of like, what are you trying to do and like why? Well, it's because I think all of us work hard, right? All of us work hard. We all deserve better. We all deserve to be treated fairly at work. We all deserve to be able to enjoy vacation and sick leave and etc. And that's not to say that you can only stick to bread and butter issues that are like less controversial, because I do think there's absolutely a need for and a space for social movement unionism, because all of these issues are connected and we can't just operate in a silo into like what happens in the workplace. So you're gonna have friction points. You're gonna have instances where some people get turned off or where you have some conflict. But again, I think if you're focusing on trying to develop relationships with folks that are in good faith, that are honest, that you may not always agree, and that, hey, you may think I'm like some crazy commie, but guess what? I'm going to show up for you. I'm going to fight for you. And I hope you'll do the same for me. Yep. And, I think, you can have success. It just takes, it takes a lot of effort, and you have to try and you have to be persistent. And you can't just give up when it doesn't work out, because it's not going to work out all the time.
Right.
It may not even work out most of the time.
Right.
But when you have those wins, it's so remarkable and amazing. And yeah, when you can work together with someone who disagrees with you about other things, but can struggle together, that enhances the relationship and builds a whole new level of solidarity that sometimes can transcend those differences, and sometimes can even begin to erase those differences and begin to bring those folks over closer to you as they see what you're about and they see the work that you're doing. So, those are just some of my thoughts.
Yeah, we went to a DSA meeting the other day, and the southern region staff organizer for the DSA. So the person that has the southern region, he came down and he was at the meeting, and we were talking after the meeting, and he said that he was previously an organizer with the UAW, and he wasn't, shy about, or he wasn't, at least he wasn't closeted anyway about being a socialist, and he told us about how there's this, one of his the best members in terms of being in favor of the union and being active and activating others for the union, was a very conservative, like Republican, like diehard, conservative, in his opinions. But after, working with him on a strike and showing him how much that he cared about, the union and him, the union generally and him specifically, they came to be, closer and friendlier, and he was and this Republican guy was introducing the socialist union staffer to a friend and said something like, yeah, this is so and so, he's a socialist, but he's a good guy. So
right. And that, hey, I mean, there are people in my life who have said something very similar about me.
Yep.
And you know what? We can still have good conversations about different issues, and not all issues
right.
by any means, but you can do it. So I would just encourage people, stay true to your values, but meet people where they are.
Yep.
If I could sum it up.
All right. So we got another couple of things to talk about today. The 844-899-8857 is the number, 844-899-TVLR. But we've got two more basically kind of UAW stories. And so here's one about what's going on at Mack Trucks. And this is, in addition to these weekly live streams that Sean Fain has been doing, the communications department has been putting out really good videos, kind of summarizing what's going on and telling workers stories. And so this was a very good one about the situation at Mack Trucks, and it includes some comments from Tim Smith, Region 8 Director, who I have had the pleasure of getting to know more over the last few weeks on the phone. Seems like a good guy. Looking forward to talking to him and working with him in the future. But let's play this video from the UAW about Mack.
At 7 a.m. on Monday, October 9th, nearly 4,000 workers at Mack Trucks walked out on strike. The night before, they voted down a tentative agreement with the company.
Agreements get voted down. It's part of the process. There's only one enemy in this situation, and that's the company, and it always is. You've basically empowered the bargaining committee to go back to the table and demand more.
We had 2 informational meetings with the members to hear their voice and what their issues was with the master and the local.
Last year, we got killed with inflation. And I know that money is there for COLA. We got to get it back on the table.
You have to be secure not only in your work, but in your retirement too. And the extra $1,000 that they're giving us to 401k, it's not going to cut it.
We should be at 40 hours and that is it. Anything after that should be paid overtime. That's how it's been, that's how it's been.
You send a powerful message. 73, and not just in this facility, across the entire Mack Trucks facility, all facilities.
A lot of people are afraid to call off sick because we have a point system. Oh my God, I have so many points, I'm going to get a day suspension or I'm going to lose my job. That's wrong. People get sick. People deserve to have a sick day.
Would be in a lot better shape if we had cost of living adjustments. I don't think that ever should have been taken away. That's the protection that we need to provide for our families. I have kids myself, so I wanted that to be in the contract.
And Mack can afford it. Mack Trucks is owned by Volvo Group. Volvo Group makes most of its money off of its trucks, including Mack. In the past 10 years, they've made $22.8 billion in profits, and they expect 2023 to be their most profitable year ever. And yet Mack workers are going backwards.
They're great profits. The companies are making billions, and they're just not sharing it with the workforce. 73% turned down the contract, 2,100 of them come back and say that COLA is their number one issue, I don't see how they can walk away from it. We know where we have to go, and I feel we can get it.
You know, these workers haven't had a raise. Inflation is sky high. I get emotional because I'm no different than they are. I'm an auto worker. I'm proud to be an auto worker. From Sean to me to the bargaining committee, we want the same thing as they want. We want a fair contract for a fair day's work for a fair day's pay for our members.
Mac workers don't have to settle for less while the company keeps making more.
As always, some really great video from the UAW, and I mean the perfect message. And this is why and this is what unions should do when there is when a tentative agreement is voted down. I mean, some unions kind of take it personally, or some people in negotiating committees take it personally when a tentative agreement is voted down, and they shouldn't, as an insult to the union, and they shouldn't. They should just take it as, look, the members think there's more, and they want more, and they think they can get more, and so as Sean Fain said in his live stream when he announced that Mac moving the deck chairs, moving around the deck chairs is not going to be sufficient. The members are the highest authority. And so, even though, in some ways you could say that, look, this Mack Truck tentative agreement that they voted down, there were some wins there, and there were, no doubt, but it wasn't enough. And so instead of, the union fighting against the membership and working with the company to rearrange deck chairs and try to have the membership vote until they get it right, they are the union is putting their force behind the membership and saying, okay, this is what you've asked us, this is what you've asked the union to do, and so we're going to do it. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that message, and that's exactly the right message.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
So we will continue to update you on that. I think Tim Smith is going to be coming on the show at some point, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into the Mack Truck situation, as well as what's going on with the Big Three with Tim when we get him on the show, and looking forward to it. But yeah, that's basically the top line of what's going on at Mack Trucks right now, and the last segment that I had lined up for today is talking about, the fight for a shorter work week. And this is something that has been getting a lot of attention in the UAW negotiations, even though the UAW really, since the beginning of the negotiations, hasn't been highlighting it as much, which I think is a little bit of a bummer, but, that's fine. I think just getting it out there is a really huge step. 4-day work week for 5 days pay is really big and deserved by the working class, because as wages have stagnated since the 70s and 80s, production has continued to increase. Production has increased even more since the 30s and 40s and 50s, since we last got a reduction in the work week, and all of that increased productivity, all of the value created by that increased productivity has more or less gone to the people at the top, gone to the people who own businesses, gone to the people who make money because they have money. And that's absolutely not right. And so we should take some of that back. And the way that we should take some of that back should be in the form of wage increases, and also in the form of more free time. One of the things that Sean Fain has repeatedly mentioned is that German workers work an average of 3 months less per year than American workers, and they're doing fine over there in Germany. And so the country is not collapsing, right, because of a short work week. It's doing fine, and so it's not something that is impossible to enact. In fact, these very companies have a shorter work week in Germany and France. And so the UAWD, Unite All Workers for Democracy, the Reform Caucus in the UAW that campaigned successfully for one member, one vote, and then campaigned successfully for the UAWD slate that had Sean Fain at the top, they put together a panel a couple of weeks ago about the fight for a shorter work week with union members from across the globe, specifically from Germany and France. And they talked about the fight for a shorter work week and how that was won and working with a shorter work week over in Germany and France and how, specifically a 32 and a 30 or a 35-hour work week is what they have over in Germany and France. 35-hour work week, and so how that was won, and the fight for a reduction even further to maybe a 32-hour work week like the UAW is fighting for. So first off is this German worker. He talked about the German fight for a shorter work week. Here it is.
In Germany, we won the 8 hours working day after the revolution of 1918. This was achievement for some decades, but in the 1970s, unemployment began to grow rapidly, and many union members demanded again shorter working time. The leadership of our union long opposed these demands until the Union Congress in 1977 decided with the majority that we will fight for the 35 hours week without cut in pay. In 1984, after long negotiations, the membership voted for strike. For 7 weeks, many of the big car plants like Mercedes, Opel, or Audi were on strike. At the peak, a big part of the car and supplier industry had stopped production, with no less than 600,000 workers involved. Additionally, at the same time, the union of the printing industry started their strike for the 35 hours week. Here in the printing industry, the strike lasted 13 weeks. Several workers were badly injured when trucks of the capitalists were driven into the picket lines. But together, the workers gained the victory, and since the year 1995, we have the 35 hours week, even at the plants of Ford Motor Companies or of Stellantis. But capitalists always try to get back longer and more flexible working time. The union pushed forward and the capitalists wanted to turn back time. After reunification of Germany, we had only 38 hours work week in the East and the 35 in the West. But after long struggles, today many companies in the East have the 35 hours. The struggle will continue until everyone has the 35. In this November 2023, our union starts the struggle for the 32 hours work week in the steel industry. And hopefully they win, and the next round of the struggle will start. As you see, the struggle for a shorter work week can be long and hard. But we should not forget shorter work week is our right. We are working for capitalists who pay us a certain living wage, but make us work for much longer hours to get their profit from our work. It is our right to get a part of our living time back. As Karl Marx said, free time is the essential wealth of a society. Thank you.
Free time is the essential wealth of a society. I think that's a great quote. And, I mean, that there's really nothing more important. There's nothing more valuable than your time. And so the ability to claw some of that back from the capitalists is important and absolutely should be at the forefront of the labor movement and has been on the back burner for far, far too long. Here is the worker from France talking about their shorter work week.
Oh no, I don't think France is working.
Oh no.
What a bummer.
Oof. Rip. Oh well. That's okay.
But I really do agree with you that this should be one of the most pressing issues of the labor movement, fighting for a shorter work week across the board. I think, it's something that we can do that would have a lot of benefits for a lot of folks. So yeah, I want to see it revived. We came very close in the 1930s to a shorter work week than 40 hours. It's time to do it. It's time to return some time to folks. I think there are economic benefits to it, environmental benefits to it, but really it's just a humanitarian thing, frankly. We've got too many folks out here who are working 2 to 3 jobs, people who are working one job but working 45, 50, 60 hours a week at that one job. We had someone in our comments talking about a UAW member saying they've been on 11-hour shifts every day basically since the last couple of years. Nothing but 11-hour shifts. And it's just uncalled for.
Right.
We can do better. We can spread more work around, and frankly, there's a lot of work in the country happening that's not super productive, that maybe is not super socially useful. And so, I've always believed that a shorter work week alongside a federal job guarantee would be huge policies that could really shift gears in this country. I know those are pretty optimistic, but I think it's something that could really help.
Yep.
And we do have a caller on the line.
All right. Let's bring the caller on the line, and I think I know who this is as well. Calling from a 256 area code. 256 area code. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Decatur, Jacob.
Hey, Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty fair. How about y'all?
I'm doing good. What's on your mind, brother?
Well, I just wanted to mention Sean Fain right quick, and what a breath of fresh air it is to an old union guy who is of the generation of give-backs. And I suffered through them for many, many years with giving away the farm, basically, every contract.
Right.
Because we didn't have no inspirational national leadership during my years. Once in a while they might puff up, but for the most part, it was whatever was coming down the pipe from corporate America, dished right out to us, and pretty much let us know you better accept it, 'cause there ain't no fight in us, and we ain't got no fight back to us. So it's just great to see the Teamsters and auto workers finally have leadership that will stand in front of their membership and tell it like it really is, because it's not really changed. I mean, the fight's not changed.
Right.
In 50 years of my work life, it's just who was willing to fight, and of course most of that goes back to the one man, one vote. Let the members decide who's going to lead them, and knowing that who they select is who's going to carry the ball for them. And thank the Lord, we just got some guys that'll actually stand up and for the membership nowadays. Gonna keep it really short and sweet. I'm proud to auto workers. who took on the small plant down around Tuscaloosa, the Mercedes supplier.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate them. I hope that was a very good contract. The numbers in the ratification reflect that it must have been really good.
Right.
Really quick, I know it's getting late. Whenever the words come out of the company's mouth, whether that be from the CEO or the HR director at whatever plant, that we got to remain competitive. That is competitive to them means if company X screws the employees, then company Y has to screw the employees also. That's their definition of being competitive. It's not competing and winning at the marketplace. It's who we gonna screw to keep our profits and shareholders' money up. I sit in meetings with the very top brass from International Paper, and one of them made the comment that we're going to smash the competition and put them out of business. And they was talking about my union brothers. I mean, if you don't think I got offended by that, I was terribly offended and told them we wasn't interested in putting somebody out of business. That wasn't our goal. You know, our goal was to make a living and provide and boost everybody. But their idea was to put somebody else out so they could make a little more money. But Jacob, really, and I'll cut it short, just the fact that we got some national leadership and some national unions who will actually stand up nowadays is where we should have never deferred from that 40 years ago. I mean that. But I think some of the national leadership got complacent, scared to fight back, and now things is probably, hopefully, changing for the better. Listen, y'all have a good day, and I won't keep you, man.
Oh, yeah, well, your lips to God's ears. And, you know, really quick before you go, I guess I am, you know, I'm interested in, you know, I've been thinking about this a little while because the UAW also has a paper mill on strike right now. I'm not sure if you had caught that, but they've got a paper mill on strike right now in New Jersey. And I've been thinking about that a lot. It's a West Rock mill. And, you know, I think one of the things that makes it even more difficult in the paper industry is that the paper mills are all in, you know, all the no strike clauses are not in the national agreement, they're in the local agreements, and all the local agreements expire. It's all staggered, you know, over the course of 3 or 4 years. And so, you know, the paper unions, they just don't have the ability to do a big strike like the UAW is doing or like the Teamsters threatened to do at UPS.
Well, you're exactly right, but Jacob, there was when there was a major merger between Pace, which was the old paper workers, and the rubber workers, oil workers, they all merged. Then we merged with the steel workers. There was some goals set there to make more master mill agreements and to take either longer or shorter contracts to make contracts expire within weeks and months of each other rather than years apart. But those they've never reached fruition on them things. They you know, we was told and I tend to believe it because it was a good strategy, but you know, where we was taking unfortunately 6-year contracts, you know, we was gonna get in there and bargain for a 4-year contract if that made more contracts expire at the same time where we could actually take them on. But that's never happened. That's really, they concentrated on master agreements in IP, West Rock, Boise, or whoever, and really never changed the expiration dates. Basically, they go into their master mill agreements and negotiate benefits, things like that, and if they're satisfactory to that location, then they get them voted in, but they never addressed the real issue of expire them and all relatively close together, so we could have a real action against them if necessary. But while we're talking about paper mills, and Mel mentioned it on the Facebook chat, was IP's announced they're closing Orange, Texas mill. Total shutdown there, and we had some of our members actually transfer out there, and most of them still employed out there, so they gonna get a double dose of IP, and then the same way with the Pensacola location, they're gonna shut down a pulp mill or a pulp dryer, which is going to affect about another 100 workers, and we got workers down that left Cortland and went down there also. They've announced about the same type of cutback at a place called Regalwood, North Carolina, where I got union acquaintances over the years that's working there.
Right.
I think that's going to affect some of them also, but the problem in the paper industry is, and we've been our own worst enemy on some of that. Don't none of us read a newspaper anymore. I do every day because I got plenty of time to do it. But we use email. We don't use as much paper as we used to. Man, the demand's dropped for it, and then these mills that this stuff's really affecting is now rather than the fine paper, the white paper, it's pulp that they sell on the open market for other paper mills to buy and make paper out of it, or even export to different places, to make paper. Or it's brown paper used in mostly packaging, boxes and stuff like that. Well, what happened over the years, Jacob, as the demand for white paper went down, in order to save some paper mills, these companies converted to brown paper or this pulp selling, and they've saturated the market pretty bad with it, So that's where a lot of the shortcomings is in the paper industry now. But like I say, we're our own worst enemy on some of that stuff too. But I can't fix that. I can't fix that. But I ain't gonna dwell on the problems. Just mention one thing. I got the shortest work week of any person in the world now. My work week is 0. So with me having a 0 work week, man, I sure hope that we see a 32-hour week for the people that are still having to go to work in the near future.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right, brother. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I really appreciate you calling, and I always appreciate you sharing with us and talking with us. It means a lot to us.
Well, and the politicians that you contacted, I probably contacted every one of them during the coal miner strike down there. Got no response from any of them in that area down there. And I really thought somebody might at least call me back, but they didn't, so that's par for the course.
Right.
But listen, y'all take care, man.
Yep. You too, brother. Always appreciate you calling in. Thanks.
All right. See you, man.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks. I think that's going to be it for us today.
Yeah, I think so. Just want to remind folks to tune in to Shop Talk. If you missed it last week or this past week, we had Lisa with Labor Notes, talked about 10-minute meetings. So if you're interested in doing stuff on the job, you want to accomplish something with coworkers, check out Shop Talk. That's the kind of thing we focus on. We focus on labor history as well as training and education. Not sure how things are going to go this week, frankly. To be determined on whether or not there will be a pre-recorded episode or an episode at all or what. We've got a lot going on this week. We got the AFL-CIO conventioning happening in Alabama. We've got a worker power meeting Thursday that Alabama Rise is doing. Just a lot happening. So it's going to be a busy week, but also wanted to just tell listeners I really appreciate everyone who's tuned in today, everyone who likes and shares and subscribes. That definitely makes a difference. And finally, we've got some big announcements coming soon. So definitely stay tuned over the next couple of weeks. We've got a cool project we're going to be working on that I think folks will really dig and will really appreciate. So that's I guess that's all I have for this weekend. Thanks again, y'all.
All right. See you next week.